going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you are new, welcome, welcome. Today we're going to continue our God roll guides for y'all with a interesting little sword that we got actually from the good old Nether in these bad boys that have two separate traits with Willing Vessel and Runneth over. Just by running the Nether, you can grab these bad boys. Already masterwork sometimes that drop from chests, final boss, stuff like that. If you go through the expert version, you can get adept versions of these weapons, so definitely suggest grinding out that Nether because all of these are pretty sick in my personal opinion, just like this one, which is a wave frame sword in Strand burn as well, something that we don't got very often in general with Strand burn heavies. But we're gonna have Willing Vessel, like I said, and Runneth over as our origin traits. So Willing Vessel, dealing damage or defeating targets with this weapon gradually increases stability, handling, reload, as well as charge rate. This effect gradually decreases over time, but gains more quickly when we are near allies. Runneth over, reloading near allies overflows the magazine. Bows receive faster draw time, swords receive a faster charge time. So for us, we're getting that charge time to increase. Definitely not a bad perk. I think maybe Willing Vessel for this is a little bit better, but Runneth over also not a terrible option for this wave frame. In our blade column, I'm gonna go with Jagged Edge. Obviously our masterwork, we're gonna have that nice little impact on this bad boy because that's all we got, but Jagged Edge gives us that +4 to impact, -4 to ammo capacity. Not bad in my personal opinion to have that. I personally go with Sword Master's Guard in my second column, not too shabby, plus we're getting that charge rate if you're running Runneth over, so nothing too insane. I don't really know about the blocking in my personal opinion for these guards. Doesn't feel too crazy difference, besides if you're using heavy guard, you are going to block a little bit more damage than if you're using something like burst guard, but I like Sword Masters just for what it is. Third column right here, we got ourselves three options for you. The first one we got is Slice. Pretty solid. If you dodge, throw down that rift, or use your barrier, you can get Slice going on, sever a bunch of different targets. Pretty good for that ad clear side of things, plus sever on a boss, not too terrible, can do a little bit of extra damage. Tireless Blade is your next option right here, with sword ammo being granted every other powered sword kill, so every other defeat we're gonna get a little bit of ammo to back. It's not too shabby again, so we can basically infinitely have some heavy up. On last but certainly not least, we got ourselves Relentless Strikes, probably my #1 choice in this column. We got ourselves landing 3 light attacks within a short time grants us sword ammo, so a little bit different than creating sword ammo, but we're gonna get it just on hits because we don't need final blows, so you can get this on bosses. Stuff like that would be my #1 choice for sure, throwing on Relentless Strikes. Fourth column, got some interesting perks that we can throw on. A new one called On Guard. Quick attacks immediately after swapping to the sword to do additional damage. It's 30% increase in damage for 1.5 seconds, so not too bad. Basically like a bait and switch, but for a sword. I also really like Elemental Honing because dealing unique elemental damage grants this stacking damage. So with the heavy, we're going to be able to get 35% damage just by doing damage with the sword. I know that's a lot of damages in one sentence, if you will, but because of this, we're going to be able to use this to do a good amount of damage with Relentless Strikes. Elemental Honing on a boss, pretty good in my personal opinion. I think it's probably my #1 choice if I'm being completely honest. And last but not least, we got ourselves Surrounded. So overall, this is 35% damage again, but if we can get this to proc, it is pretty easy instead of having to get other things to happen, which is why 35%, just like Elemental Honing, we can get it to stack up to 35% too. It just might take a little bit longer to get there sometimes than Surrounded, because Surrounded will immediately proc, but very good little weapon that we got, if you will call it little. It's a sword, so not little, but it's doing some pretty sweet damage. I really like the wave frame side of it. Not as good as something like our spinning ones like Falling Guillotine, Vortex frames, but still pretty solid overall. So I'm gonna give it like a 4.2, 4.1 out of 5, just because like those Falling Guillotines, Vortex frames are gonna do a little bit more, but these perks on this thing, very interesting and very good. On to PvP, we got ourselves the good old Tempered Edge. I think is probably your best choice right here. Not too keen on using swords inside of the Crucible unless they have Eager Edge, and this bad boy does not, sadly, but Tempered Edge is what I would go with as your first choice. Moving on to our guard, Burst Guard, because we're going to use it to block a bunch of damage as quickly as I can, so you can get close to your enemy and whack them with the sword, you know, bonk them in the head, that sort of thing. Third column, first choice, I think would probably be Slice, or I should say first option. My first choice will be Valiant Charge, but Slice, if we use our class ability, we're going to be able to sever targets, so we can create a little bit more AoE going on, do a little bit more damage to Guardians and their super stuff like that, so not a bad choice. I think, like I said, Valiant Charge is probably number one because receiving damage while guarding it temporarily gives you sword distance lunge, so using this with that burst guard, you can block a good amount of damage really quickly, and then this will proc, so you can just go almost similar to an Eager Edge, obviously not that far, but your lunge does get increased a good distance. Fourth column, I guess, just this one is probably your best option. I don't really know. There's nothing in this that's too good. You could go with Surrounded if you want that 35% damage increase, or Sword Logic right here. Final blows with the weapon grant damage increase. The strength and duration depends on who you defeat. Guardians count as more than one stack, so it is pretty solid. It's a 20% increase that you can get on this bad boy inside of PvP, but you're not really going to need a damage increase just because we are getting a lot of one-shots anyways, unless you're dealing with somebody in their super. So overall, like I said, Eager Edge swords definitely way better. Those are up in the 4.8 ranges. I would throw this thing probably at like a 4.0, maybe a little bit lower for the Crucible, but not too shabby. Again, got some good origin traits on this bad boy. Definitely a better PvE weapon. Like I said, very interesting combinations that we could throw on this bad boy, but definitely get to grinding out these adepts, get to grinding out that nether, everything in that aspect, because all of these weapons from the nether are pretty solid. So appreciate you guys for always coming back to the channel. Means a lot to me, means a lot to the channel. Don't be afraid to like and subscribe. Slap that bell if you have not, because it helps me out, helps the channel out. Plus you guys get notifications so you don't miss out on any of these guides that we have out here or builds. So again, appreciate all you guys. Get to grinding out that nether. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.